ครับสวัสดีค่ะแขกท่านผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านนะคะยินดีต้อนรับทุกท่านกลับเข้าสู่งานอาเซียนคอนเฟอเรนซ์อีกรอบหนึ่งนะคะในวันนี้ซึ่งเป็นงานวันที่2ค่ะขอแจ้งกำหนดการคร่าวๆก่อนนะคะวันนี้เราจะมีการdiscussion 2เรื่องนะคะหลังจากที่เราเลื่อนจัดงานจาก9โมงเป็น10โมงวันนี้คิดว่าทุกท่านน่าจะพร้อมมากขึ้นแล้วก็ไม่เหนื่อยเกินไปนักนะคะวันนี้เรามีสปีกเกอร์จาก OECD นะคะแล้วก็แขกผู้มีขอโทษค่ะได้รับเกียรติจากท่านเลขาธิการ ONDE นะคะมาเป็นสปีกเกอร์พิเศษของเราในวันนี้ค่ะเพื่อไม่ให้เป็นการเสียเวลานะคะขอทำความเข้าใจกับท่านผู้เข้าร่วมงานอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะคะว่าท่านจะได้รับกระบอกน้ำที่ทางกพร.มอบให้ท่านนะคะใช้ระหว่างการประชุมในวันนี้และสามารถนำไปใช้ในโอกาสถัดไปนะคะเนื่องจากเราคอนเซิร์นเกี่ยวกับสิ่งแวดล้อมค่ะซึ่งเป็น global trend ในตอนนี้เกี่ยวกับเรื่อง reuse reduce และ recycle นะคะสามารถนำกระบอกน้ำครั้งนี้เนี่ยไปใช้ได้แล้วก็ไม่สร้างขยะรวมไปถึงเอกสารประกอบการประชุมนะคะสามารถดาวน์โหลดได้ที่ QR code ด้านหน้านะคะ Good morning distinguished guests ladies and gentlemen welcome back to the ASEAN conference for the second day toward the citizen-centric ASEAN conference toward a citizen-centric civil service government at a glance Southeast Asia 2019 open and connected government event as the second day. Today we are entering the session of open and connected governments peer review process and a plenary session. This plenary session will be a discussion by team of peer experts in countries that have conducted a successful on open and connected governments reform as well as the OECD policy analysis consists of. Okay, may I invite all the speakers to the stage แต่ท่านทปส.แป๊บหนึ่งนะคะ Okay. The moderator will be Nancy Rutsuni. Is that you? Nancy? Okay. Nancy Rutsuni, sorry for the misannouncement. And Liz Luskendorf. And Sinwei Lo to the stage, please. And then we will have honorable guests who will give a keynote speech this morning, which is Mr. Marcus Bonturi, the Director of Public Governance at Directorate OECD, and Ms. Piyanut Wuttisorn, Secretary General from ONDE, will give the keynote speech.
Good morning to all of us. Welcome to the second day of this event. I think this is I feel honored to be here, to be invited on behalf of Ministry of Digital Economy and Society and from Office of the National Digital Economy and Society Commission. This office has been newly established 2 years ago. This is really to answer the changing context to digital economy and society. So that my task today actually to give you a big picture of Thailand digitization, and I will let you know the word of or the context of open and connected government belongs to which part of the policy. Actually, I have my presentation as well. This is visual aids. You can follow on that. At first, of course, I think you may know Thailand pretty well. When we are talking about Thailand, of course, we normally begin with economic structure, demographic profile, and yes, GDP per capita, and those statistics I put here on screen. But what I really want to highlight here, that is internet user, and also another one, mobile phone user. And you can see here more than almost 50%. This is the international internet bandwidth of Thailand. And more than, I think the number is mobile broadband subscription, almost 95%. And you can see from here, this is a reflection from outside in international organization. You can see we are on the rise in terms of ranking, whether this has been ranked by IMD, WEF, and also the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. And this is very impressive for the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. That is up to from 46 to 26, 2017 to 2018. And down here for the digital ranking from various organizations, you can see here pretty good with better position. And what I have just mentioned, that is about mobile broadband subscription and also mobile cellular subscription, even almost 200%. Yesterday, when I read on what Secretary General of OPDC has mentioned, channel for communicate or to let public participation. I think this is one good example of channel of participation. And of course, this can show very good information for Thailand. And before I move on to digitization Thailand, I really want to talk about big picture of the policy context of the country. This is according to National Strategy Act 2017. This is 20 years national strategy and 6 national strategy from here run from security, competitiveness, human resource development, and then about equality. And here, the last one, I skip one thing that is about environmental friendly, balancing and enhancing system development of public administration. And I really want to point out here, this is where open and connected governance or government belong to. Yes. And from here, if we move further, I think in developed country context, the development might be already at the point to over 4.0 already. I went to a session of G20 already talking about 5.0. But Thailand is moving towards 4.0. And right now, I think this is our reform ambition. And I think in the 20 years, we really want to get to the position of developed country. And also to get there, the government has highlighted what to get there. That is the role of innovation. And another thing is the role of digital technology. So in this digital landscape, I really want to let you know we have the 20-year digital economy and society plan as well. When I'm talking about digital economy, we have the word society as well because we really want inclusiveness and social inclusion to be included in the process of technology development or Thailand digitization. Yes, as I said before, I'm talking about innovation, creativity, and then converting the country to the digital economy. In the context of Thailand, when we're talking about digital Thailand, what do we mean about that? Let me read this. Digital Thailand refers to the country taking full and creative advantage of digital technology to develop infrastructure, innovation, data capability, human capability, and all the resources. This is what we refer to as digital Thailand. And as I said before, in 20-year Thailand digital landscape, I can show you 4 phases of digital Thailand. At first stage, that is investment of digital infrastructure. Before that, when we're talking about infrastructure, we may refer only road, rail, electricity, irrigation facility. And right now, we have included digital infrastructure as country infrastructure. And this is already indicated in the Digital Economy Act as well. Yes, and look at here, the first one, this is about digital foundation. This is to invest and building digital foundation that is infrastructure. We made it for 1 year and 6 months along the time span for 20 years. And from that, we moved to next 5 years that we call phase 2, digital inclusion. This is to let everyone to utilize digital infrastructure and get benefit from that. And for phase 3, I think we moved to a so-called full digital transformation. That means driving the country with digital technology and innovation. And at last, when we reach the last phase, that is phase 4, that means we would like, this is our ambition reform, that means we want to get at the point of global digital leadership. I think 20 years is not too long, and hopefully if my generation won't be there, hopefully the next generation and you guys here will keep me informed in any form that perhaps could reach my generation as well. And perhaps if I move from here, I just really want to talk about the strategy of under the digital economy and society development. We have 6 strategies as well. And one of that is digital government. So digital government cannot be made if we don't have digital infrastructure well enough, if we don't have human resource well enough, and if we don't have made people go together, that is social inclusion as well. And at the same time, we got to make trust among people, to make trust to use digital economy either in the for the use of in the economy or in the society as well. So that from here, I think right now, I have information at the perhaps in the last page on the a so-called infrastructure as well, that is about rule of laws and regulation, and that is institutional infrastructure. Thailand is in the process of making rule of laws to make sure and to make people having trust in using digital technology. And yes, and if I focus on the fourth strategy, and that is about digital government, and I put here on formation quite small font, and I understand that this PowerPoint presentation will be provided to you all. And key action for digital government, the first one is migrating to citizen-driven smart service. That is, we got to transform a so-called traditional public services into a digital format. And this is the first one. The second one is about increasing efficiency and also good governance by using digital technology. Yes, if I quickly go to the third one, that is talking about high-value data to the public. And this is to talk about, perhaps right now, we're talking quite a lot on big data. And big data analytics is key for policy formulation as well. Because right now in Thailand, we try to use big data and big data analytics for overcome and to help reduce poverty, for example, to help improve the health process and also the accessibility to health services in Thailand as well. And I think the last one, this is developing government service platform to support the delivery of basic public services by governmental agency via new application and also new form of services. And this is talking about efficiency, transparency, and with no cost to the Thai citizen. Yes, I think I still have time a bit more to talk about digital government. This is just to show you from government policy using various forms of technology. It could be open any data, virtual reliability, advanced GIS, you read all of them. And this is to improve the quality of service towards the citizen of Thailand. And this is just really to see, to let you see how to make the implementation from policy to the welfare of the people. And yes, from the next one, and this is digital economy as well. When talking about digital economy in society, you can see here a lot of terms. Yes, from here, digital government, we're talking about digital-centric services, and you have heard about that, smart operation, government integration, and driven transformation. And I understand that the form of one-stop services, this is one form that is we really want to see. Government transparency, I already have mentioned, and people participation. As I said before, right now, with Thai citizens well-equipped, and as I said, from the statistic of the smartphone and the subscription of the internet broadband, that will allow more participation from Thai citizens. And the last one, that is about data integration and infrastructure and digital skill as well. I understand that this is what we are struggling at this moment, that is about digital skill. We really need to upskill and to train and retrain as well for the people to cope with the development of digital technology. I still have some information about Thailand big data. Right now, we try to use big data analytics in various sectors, either health that I already mentioned, disaster and prevention, and agriculture, smart agriculture, and also transport and logistics. This is try to make use of big data, and we would like to upskill of big data analytics both in government officials and also the private sector as well. And perhaps this is just more information about big data usage. Right now, we already have infrastructure architecture already been done, and we have a data governance framework. We're talking about one-stop service center, talk about paperless and cashless. When talking about paperless, I think I may be one of representative of age people. People said that we want to get to the paperless society, but when you grow old, it's pretty hard to read on screen, so that when we read on screen, that would be something that we can catch up quickly. But if we would like to get more concentration, I think at my age and my peer, we still prefer paper-based document as well, so that I understand that we might get information from internet, from smart devices, but we still need to look at textbook as well, and when we want to concentrate on that. And I think I go to my last slide. For this one, this is another infrastructure from the government, that is the government data center and cloud services. That is, we have data storage for the governmental agency, so that you governmental agency don't have to set up their own data center, and that is to reduce costs. And Ministry of Digital Economy and Society will do such job. That is a big investment, and right now in the process of gearing towards this cloud. As Thailand is ASEAN chairmanship, last week we have ministerial ICT meeting. Right now we call as ASEAN Digital Ministerial Meeting. We have the next slide. I think we call ASEAN Digital Agility 2019. You can see here the focus in 5 areas on cyber security, smart city. This is a continuation from last year chairmanship of Singapore, and digital economy. And this is about digital data governance and cross-border data. This is an issue that Thailand initiated, and also connectivity and mobility. And the most important one that we got to focus and try to make it happen successfully, that is about manpower. Because we got to have people well equipped and well enough to, as I said, to walk along with the digital society and Thailand digitization. And I understand that my time would be perfectly ending right now. Hopefully, information I have just given would create some thought for you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pianut Vuthisaran from ONDE. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Bonturi to give the keynote speech.
Good morning. Thank you so much. This is Pianut Vuthisaran. Thank you very much for your introductory remarks. Also wanted to thank Liz Lutkendorf. Thank you very much, Liz, and Nancy Rutsuni, Garistopoli. Thank you so much. They were actually the peer reviewers of the review on open and connected government that we have done for Thailand. If you have not seen it, I hope you have that on your desks. Ladies and gentlemen, digital, open, and innovative government practices offer, I would say, new and very exciting ways to harness society's creativity and help us address some of the main policy challenges that governments face today. But despite all this promise, despite all these opportunities, governments are often unable to respond quickly to the most pressing societal challenges. I'll just mention a few of those challenges: growing inequalities, climate change, technological transformation. Governments have not been able to address or respond quickly enough to address them. And what we have seen as a result is that there has been a gradual erosion of trust in institutions across a number of OECD countries, but also a number of partner countries. This is true for trust in governments, trust in parliaments, trust in all different institutions. On OECD countries, only about 4 out of 10 citizens trust their governments. Again, we take that very, very seriously. Southeast Asia, of course, is not immune to this trend. And governments are also here in this region struggling to better serve their citizens and foster more inclusive growth. I would say that that opens a major opportunity for us to build on the open and digital government policies to improve policymaking. This is what this is about. It's about improving policymaking. And also to help us design and deliver better public services to respond to the user's needs. So it is all for those reasons, for the importance of the topic, that we very much welcome when Thailand had this, taking the leadership in having a very ambitious, as we just heard from the Secretary General, a very ambitious 20-year national strategy, Thailand 4.0. And also very happy that Thailand came to us, to the OECD, and asked us to provide some advice, some recommendations on how to better align this national strategy with the principles of transparency, accountability, integrity, and increased citizens' participation. So thank you very much for that. What we're doing today, we're launching the very first OECD report on open and connected governments. We had done open governments before, we had done digital governments before. It's the first time we were doing that together. And again, Thailand is showing the way, is providing this leadership and thinking more holistically about those things, again, together. What the review does is that it provides strategic policy advice to the government, drawing upon the experiences of OECD countries, of OECD partner countries, and some of the good practices that we have codified in the OECD recommendations on open and digital government policies. This, of course, needs to be seen in the context of this very close partnership that we have with Thailand and in the launch of the Thai country program, first country in the region to have a country program with the OECD. I want to say very briefly that the information, I mean, this has been a very, very interesting exercise for us. The information and data that we collected in the review process will also it's also meant to contribute to the measurement. There's a very strong link with the measurement work that we have been doing, including in the Government at a Glance for Southeast Asia that we introduced yesterday, and hopefully will be launching in the next couple of months with you here in the region. So very strong link between the review and all the data collection exercises. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just conclude by saying that we need to go beyond the hype. In all this excitement that we hear about the new possibilities of open and digital governments, what we really need is service delivery and policies which are evidence-based, which are transformative, tailored, and proactive, but also that are inclusive. Otherwise, we'll not meet citizens' needs and citizens' expectations. We have a very prominent panel, and I want to leave time for them to share their experiences. So I'll conclude by just thanking again our friends here in Thailand for their engagement with the OECD. And we look very much forward to deepening this cooperation. We believe we're benefiting a lot from this cooperation with Thailand. We're learning a lot from the energy that Thailand has shown. And I'm sure that we'll most certainly be using some of the good practices you're developing here in Thailand as we discuss and start working with other countries. So with that, let's move straight to the panel and give time for our panelists to share their experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Without further ado, I would like our speaker to start our session, please.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you so much. You have been introduced to all members of the panel, with the exception of Mr. Low, who is the director of the Digital Workplace Program Office in the Prime Minister's office in Singapore. Thank you for being with us as well. Liz, Nancy, Secretary General, thank you very much for being with us. As Secretary General herself and underlined in her opening remarks, we're living in a very complex environment. Again, we're excited about all those possibilities, but we also know that openness is a must if governments are to create, I would say, a collaborative relationship with their citizens. We looked at the issue of declining trust. So I would say that digital and open government policies can help deliver the results that we need to counterbalance this declining trust. But securing results is easier said than done. So this is a common challenge. Countries from different parts of the world are facing similar challenges. So what we hear is really to hear from the panelists about their own national experiences in this area. I will ask them one single question, and I'll perhaps first round 5 minutes. Perhaps you can give us some your perspectives, your insights. How do your national experience, your national open government and digital government policies can support each other? How do you link them? I'll start with Liz, if you don't mind.
Hi. So I think the policies work best when they're kind of self-reinforcing, when they're kind of virtuous cycle, that kind of, you start with maybe digital and open, and you get to advance each a little at a time, and then the next time you get to advance a little more. So, for example, when I first arrived at GDS, which wasn't even GDS, GDS is a government digital service, Gov.uk didn't exist yet, we were building it. But the first thing I read was the GDS design principles. And number 10 on that list, which is now the government design principles, was make things open, it makes things better. So establishing the culture of being open at GDS already was in government. It was already established with open standards, open government. So then when we built Gov.uk, our single domain, we open sourced all our code, or most of our code. We worked in the open. We used open source software to build our systems. And we built things like registers, because we started to recognize that what we needed was common data sets that would allow us to build faster. So registers are basically a list of things. For example, what countries the UK thinks exist, which is a very helpful thing, because we often have to make services that involve people going overseas, so they need to select a drop-down with their countries. So we made that. And then when we look at our national open data strategy, or open government strategy, we now can add more registers to that, because we've already built the platform, we've already built the standards that allow us to add more. So our last strategy had things like making sure that all of the different types of public bodies or public areas exist. So the UK seems to never get rid of something. So we have about like 50 different ways to classify somewhere in the UK, like a parish and a council and a MP's constituency and things. So we now have a list of those that anyone can use to build a service. We also defined what would be in these registers, so they're common standards, so people can trust the data and they understand it and they can rebuild on it. Then also in that same strategy, because we already had built this massive platform, so gov.uk is all our content, but actually what sits behind it is a massive publishing platform for all of government. And in our strategy, where they're like, well, we've got all this content, why don't we make that available by an API in our open government strategy, so people can check the publishing history of every document, so they can see if the government's changed its mind on something. So then that was built into our missions at GDS, and we built that, and that's available as well. And then it goes like right over to things like open standards. So we also have procurement platforms like you do here. And instead of having separate contract types, because we know from our user experiences when we've done user research with both suppliers to our procurement platform and also to the people who have to use it, like civil servants, that it's often quite confusing to know lots of different contract types. So again, in our open government strategy, we adopted a common contract standard for all of our procurement, which then helps with transparency as well. And I think the last thing I'll mention is I really love gov.uk. I don't work on it anymore, but it was like my first government project. And we have a saying in it, which is gov.uk is never finished, even though it looks finished. And that's because everything changes. Our commitments to open government change, which requires us to build new tools or build on the tools we have or open up more data. Policies change, governments change. Also, and most importantly, the expectations of our users change. So we constantly have to be adapting our platforms, but also our approach to open government to meet those expectations.
Thank you so much, Liz. I think a very important point. Expectations change, and we need to keep up, and then a very interesting experience. Nancy, perhaps can you share also from the Greek perspective, how do you see the connection between the different policies?
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank OECD for giving me this opportunity to participate in this mission. And actually, I was very happy because already I have met many of the champions of the digital strategy in Thailand and the open and connected strategy in government. I'm really keen on meeting more people until Friday, that we will be working with you people here. And also to thank you for giving me this opportunity to discuss and share my experience from Greece. And I cannot do this if I ignore the country context and if I ignore the economic crisis that we're currently facing in Greece. And it is my belief that crisis is usually, times of crisis are sometimes opportunities for change, and this is what is happening now in Greece. I feel that for the first time, Greece is trying to change so radically and so fast. And in order to do that, we are trying to enhance the effectiveness of the public sector. And in order to enhance the effectiveness of the public sector, the digital government, our strategy for the digital government is one of the key drivers. So what we're trying to do is to change our processes, to simplify our processes, to bring new services for the citizens and the businesses, and to give them new channels for the distribution of these services, but also to try and make a little bit the internal operation of the government more efficient, and we need a digital strategy for that. But in parallel, we have the economic crisis, but this economic crisis brought also the social crisis in Greece, and we discussed already about trust. And one of our key challenges now is to regain the trust with the public. So for this, we need to introduce our open government strategy in Greece, and we need to be to bring transparency, integrity, accountability, and we try to bring the government closer to the citizen and the businesses. So we have a kind of two parallel tracks in the Greek government. We have the digital government, the strategy for the digital government, the strategy for the open government, and initially, actually, we were going in these two directions in parallel. But now we soon came to realize that these strategies can only succeed if they serve each other and if they support each other. So it's easier to explain maybe why technology is needed for open government, because Liz already discussed about open data policies, and now it's actually a new trend in all governments. We have open data policies, and we're trying to build a data-driven ecosystem in our countries. And it's very easy to bring a new law for access to information. In Greece, we have the open by default law, so we have the law there. But we also need to couple this with digital solutions and a digital platform in order to collect all this information from the public sector, to enable any interested party to retrieve this information, to reuse this information, create applications with this information, and then maybe add value to these data sets that we keep closed sometimes in our governments. And also other open government initiatives, like you mentioned about engagement of the stakeholders for policy making. So again, this very important challenge, we cannot make it without digital tools. So already we discussed with officials here from the government that you have the public hearings, the online public hearings. We try to use social media. We try to use any channel that will help us to bring closer our stakeholders. So it's clear that we need technology to implement our open government policy, but it's not only that. It's equally, we need the open government principles in order to successfully implement our digital strategy. Because if we realize that if we just go with a typical citizen-centric approach, and all the experts, we sit down and try to assume or imagine what our citizens need and what our businesses need, then possibly we will fail. So the idea is that what we need to do now is to make citizens and businesses a partner in this process. So to try to design with them the solutions that will be there for them. And of course, it's not very easy to make everyone happy, because even our stakeholders and all the actors, maybe they have a different inception about the problem or the solution. They may have different approaches for the problem. So we cannot satisfy everyone, but we cannot exclude anyone from this process. So we need to make sure that we provide the possibility, at least, for them to participate. So they have the possibility to participate and they get the correct feedback. And of course, yesterday we discussed a lot here about innovation labs and other approaches, new modern approaches for development. So these stakeholders could even be included in developing our solutions. So with crowdsourcing, with approaches like that, we take them on board even for building the actual result. So we need technology for open government. We need open government principles for successful digital strategies. But I believe that on top of that, we really need to make sure that we have a very important ingredient in the government, which is the right culture and the right attitude and the right skills, so we can really empower the public servants to bring this reform and make all this happen, all the strategies and all the policies and everything that we need to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nancy. People say that the crisis is also an opportunity for reforms, and Greece really shows that has really been the case. Mr. Low, perhaps you can share some of the experiences in Singapore. We've been also moving very fast in this policy area.
Yeah, you may not like to hear what I'm going to say. I mean, in Singapore, we are rather pragmatic about things. I mean, open government, digital government, what do we see as the benefits from all these things? I mean, I'm just looking at page 99 of your report about how different policy objectives for open government initiatives within OECD and Southeast Asia, roughly the same. You look at it, improve transparency, improve accountability, improve responsiveness. But really, I mean, if you really look at the overlap between digital government strategies and open government strategies, it's actually really only in one, better economic outcomes, and secondly, better service delivery to citizens. And in these two areas, we do see limited impact between open government policies and digital government policies. I mean, two very successful examples I've seen in New York and Australia, for example, is government releasing large amounts of geospatial data and also consumption patterns, let's say financial wealth data, so that businesses can plan better where to site, this business, or whether or not they want to plan, for their expansions. I think that works fine. But I guess in our context, in a highly urban city, I think the commercial players sometimes do better than us when it comes to have valuable data to share. For example, the government, because of personal data protection concerns, can only share that much. Whereas telcos go about and share, what are the traffic footfalls of people between malls, and tell you which part of the town are you likely to get better business. And Google does a much better job of providing, I think, geospatial data in a city context, which I think the government can augment quite well with, I think, let's say, traffic APIs and, parking, congestion data or something like that. But largely, I think we are still an intermediary when it comes to, commercial players providing that. However, we do see very good results when we are very targeted about what we want to achieve, and not merely just say, publish it out there, and hopefully some kind soul will pick up our data and be able to make good things about it. Let me give you two examples. I think one is in the area of urban we run hackathons from time to time, and in fact we do have, I think, what we call a sandbox models, where we avail a much larger set of potentially sensitive data to a smaller number of closely vetted individuals. For example, we're doing this autonomous vehicle trial in one of our precincts in Singapore. We release far more information than we would actually under any open data initiative. But the hope there is that the people who participate in these trials will be able to, I think, get a precinct level autonomous vehicle model going up. There's another example where in Singapore we have a railway system, a light rail system. Sometimes trains break down and citizens get very aggrieved that trains actually break down, which is, they've never been to London, obviously. And there was once, I think there was this we call it a route train problem. On this one line, occasionally there'll be very suspicious train breaks down, and we actually released the data regarding, the train breakdown timings, which station it occurs, which switches, it happened, to a small number of industry players as well as to different government agencies, in the hope that they may be able to help the Land Transport Authority solve the problem. And actually they did. One hotshot data scientist is able to notice some interesting patterns and say, actually, there is one train with a faulty transmitter that's affecting everyone around it, and basically was able to solve the problem. So I would say, actually, rather than just to rely on a fairly passive stance, towards data, publish and, all would prosper, sometimes it might necessitate us, taking a very targeted view as to say what data benefits whom, and to be able to, I think, pull people in to be able to co-create us results. Yeah. So yeah, you might not like that view. I mean, Singapore, we are rather pragmatic about things.
We love hearing different perspectives. So it's very, very good. Of course, open government policies go much beyond open data. Now, there's a broader set of policies there. But interesting point, and it's good to have a different perspective. Secretary General Wuchesorn, again, you have the last word on the Thai experiences, of course. Making reference to the review that highlights some of the very ambitious reform processes. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, I think I already mentioned and gave a lot of information about Thailand. As I mentioned regarding the plan that is very important for the guideline of the country moving towards digitization of Thailand. And I think the most struggling at this moment would be how to make use of digital infrastructure. and this is for economic purpose and at the same time for society as well. And I think right now in Thailand, even we have shown a number of people who could access to internet well equipped with smartphone devices. But what is concerned most, that is the sensitivity of the people with data and also information. I think this is very important that we got to look at the digital literacy as well and the sensitivity of the people to data. People might trust fake data easily. That is the problem as well that can make a rise in improper manners. You might see this as a very small angle of digital society, but it's actually creates a lot of impact in the society as well. So that what I really want to give you information and concern about digital economy and society in Thailand, that is about digital literacy, that we got to build up, to train them, to retrain and upskill. And this is my agency, we have a survey as well. And the result has come up in a way that we need to improve quite a lot, that is capability of the people. And another thing in Thailand, we need to create trust between citizen and government as well. Even you have said that open data is just only one aspect of the open government. In Thailand as well, in various occasions, people tend not to believe in the government. Data provided from the government tend to be, kind of ignored. For example, right now we have problem with pollution, the dust in the society, and how to cope with that. And people might have thought that the government cover real information about this, so that we got to build trust between Thai citizen and also the governmental agency as well. This is one angle. And another thing is to make value creation country as indicated in the digital plan really need a lot more innovation. And we got to learn more, because right now it is like before that, if you trace back to the history of development of Asian country and Asian country, that is export-led growth model. And right now people, all countries go to digital technology-led growth model as new engine, so that we got to find a proper solution for Thailand and to share experience for our friends as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary General. You can see how you're really thinking ahead in many of those issues, and the issue of capacity building is indeed a common problem as well. I would like to have perhaps a few questions from the audience. If you could ask brief questions, identify yourself if you may, and if you want to address your question to any specific member of the panel, please do so we know who to solicit. So again, the floor is open. Anybody from the audience would like to make a comment, ask a question? Yes? Someone behind the pillar. I cannot see it. Oh, no, it's right there. Okay.
Good morning. Thank you, OECD, for inviting us here. I'm Luis Indefenso from the Philippines, Department of Budget and Management. This question is about blockchain. I see in the previous slides by our colleague here that blockchain is being used by your government, especially also in Singapore. How do you use the blockchain in your country? How do you implement it? And how is blockchain really affecting the government, or how these blockchain will affect in the citizen-centric application or systems that will be used by your country or by our country? That's my question.
Thank you so much. Let me collect a couple more questions, then I'll give the floor back to the panelists. Anybody else would like to ask a question? Yes, it's a gentleman here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Vieng Son Leungkam-Singh from Laos. I have two questions or two curiosities. The first one, as we have heard and known the positive side of digital government or open data, open government, I'm curious in which areas of the government should not be digitized, maybe from OECD experience or Thai or maybe Singaporean experience. And my second question, how about negative impact of being open government or digital society? Yeah, thank you.
Your first question is which areas should be?
Should not be digitized.
Okay, very
I'm
good.
just curious.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Okay, one more question maybe. Yes, lady here, please.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Orapin Sopchokchai. I have one question to address Ms. Nancy about the Greek experience. You mentioned that one thing that is very important to implement the program is the right attitude. What is the Greek experience in terms of taking care of the right attitude, and at what level, a policy level or implementing level? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'll stop here because we're really running out of time. I will then give the floor to each of the panelists in inverse order of where they receive the floor first. And then if you also please also say some concluding remarks to try to answer any of the questions or all of the questions that were posed by the audience, but also use the opportunity for some closing remarks. Start with you, Secretary General.
Yes, perhaps I choose to answer a question from the floor on which area that should not be digitized, right, if I'm not mistaken. I think should not, let me put in this way. In various countries, when talk about tax, people might not like that much. Information in this area got to be secure and cannot be made known got to have the level of security as well. And I think this is from the perspective of a business point of view. And perhaps most area that data and information of personal people, that shouldn't be digitized, or at least got to have the level of security as well. And this is what Thailand concerned as well. We have a rule of law to deal with that. And at this moment, we got to have a so-called domestic clearance to make people to understand the law mission and what is this law to protect the Thai citizen as well. Because as I said before, information that has been spread out may not be the right information then. So people misled the government's intention according to the provision of this law, especially cybersecurity, personal information. So I think this is what we need to deal with, the personal information. And I think about blockchain, I put it in Singapore because I think Singapore might have better experience than Thailand. But if I'm not mistaken, when talking about blockchain, that is to work with one angle to work with database as well and try to make use of database to secure, to store, and this is what I understood at this moment. And the rest, perhaps Liz and Nancy could give experience or answer on that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I mean, on the issue of, you have one. The issue of digitalization, I mean, it's not that you cannot digitalize, but as Secretary General has said, you need to take into account some privacy issues, cybersecurity issues, so you do it in a way that, no, you can take those concerns into account. But Mr. Loh.
Okay. Well, since you directed the blockchain question to me, I'll probably have to direct it back to Greece and UK. Because really, if you think about it, blockchain in this pure form really is a blemish on the role of government. It presumes that there is no single regulatory authority who's able to give very credible, keep credible records. And you do need to rely on a large number of people to do that. That actually runs counter to how, most government operates. And I think there has not been many, I guess, very highly impactful applications of blockchain even in Singapore. One may be in the area of, let's say, qualifications. There's a project, I think, that one of our polytechnics is doing actually to bundle up all the education providers in Singapore to be able to put up, I think, an e-transcript or something online where any employee would be able to ping, I think, if let's say someone says, I have a degree from this university, they just have to go to this national database as an API, ping it, and it will come back with an answer yes or no. It really is a way for us to be able to unify both the private and public qualification side. But I think that's not pure blockchain in the way it's defined. As to, I think, Mr. Vieng Song's question about what should not be digitized, the Singapore government's stance is very clear. Every public service must be digitized. All of them must allow e-payment, no wetting signature, straight through digitalization. But I think that's one important point to note, that digital service is not at the exclusion of face-to-face services. I think the mantra is digital service but with a personal touch. And we must realize that I think there are segments of the population, for example, the elderly, who may not have such a confidence using digital products, that you must always be able to, I think, maintain, counter services. And ironically, I think digital services actually allow us to be able to, I think, target, those which actually are not so digitally savvy, because then we're able to deploy our resources to make sure that these people understand our policies and everything better, while the ones who don't really care and just want to pay their fines and get out of the way, you don't waste any ounce of human time on these people. So actually it's quite good for prioritization this way. So rather than to see, what should not be digitized, you should see, how digitization can provide you with some of the resource allocation that you can then focus on the vulnerable, the digitally vulnerable. The negative impact of open government, I would like to say actually, I guess it's most pronounced in procurement, where everything has to be done really by the books. And even, I visited the UK fairly recently, Home Office and the Cabinet Office on your cloud ERP project, being able to, I think, get the whole of government actually to use a number of shared providers when it comes to, let's say, HR, finance, payroll services. We were quite astounded to hear that actually, in most part, your UK agencies actually went by and selected a vendor while holding open bids, let's say, for the system integrators. That would have been a no-no in Singapore, because we are quite orthodox about procurement, and we barely ever make any direct contractings, and that's because I think we are quite afraid of public scrutiny questioning why we do direct contracting. So that's, I think, one area. Second area, I think, maybe in the area of innovation, ironically, because when public accounts and public documents are being audited and being published nationally, people tend to try to stay within the rules. Give you this example. How many of you know Grab? I mean, Southeast Asia, we all know Grab, right? Grab actually has this service here where you actually allow you to do straight-through claims. That means to say that, let's say when you hire a Grab service, instead of putting on your own private credit card, you put in your government department. And Grab actually has this service that actually just routes the payment directly to the government offices. So it eliminates the need for claims, which is millions of man-hours of work a year. It's wonderful. I mean, consumers like it. The government, should not say no to it. But interestingly, when we went out to our 80-over departments, only 30% of them said yes from day one. That's because processing straight-through claim does require a different risk management approach. from the previous situation where you have very, very well thought through processes for each claim to be routed up to their superiors and their superior to make sure that, you know, all of them are orthodox. And for the longest of time, there was actually a big jam on whether or not we were able to successfully adopt such a practice, simply because people were afraid that the auditors would pick up a different risk management approach, and people were not confident that they were able to argue that, yeah, you know, if you just do, you know, use analytics, we'll be able to, I think, spot outliers that satisfy our auditors. So this is in one area where I think open government and the additional public scrutiny associated with public government actually does impede innovation. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Loh. Perhaps one quick word on blockchain. This is something that we are looking at very closely at the OECD. We just had a major conference bringing in expertise in different policy areas. We're of course seeing lots of applications in government, from land registry to procurement and so on. But we also worried a little bit on what is the role of government in regulating some of those applications and cryptocurrencies and so on. So there's perhaps some need for governments to think ahead on what is their role, you know, as regulators as well. Nancy?
Okay, yes, and I will start from what you just mentioned about blockchain. And also my experience in Greece is that, of course in Greece also this is a new area, and we are trying to take advantage of this new technology and approach. And it's mainly the private sector and the banking sector maybe that really take advantage of this. But in the government, we have also started some initiatives, and the objective is trying to break a little bit the silos that we have in the government. So we also have a case for the academia and for the students, and so we store all the documents and all the documents that are under the identity of a student in a blockchain, so it's easier for them to move around and also to go international as students. And also we try to address another societal challenge in Greece, which is the refugee crisis. So there we have a very interesting case for the use of blockchain, because if we take all the papers and the identity of the refugee and we have it in a blockchain, it's easier for them also to have a global identity instead of moving from one country in another and trying to keep carry the identity with them. So we have cases like that, and I believe that there is it's an area that we can explore more and to take advantage of. And answering to the question of the lady here, actually I will not use so much the Greek experience, but also the experience that I had these days here working with Thailand. And we understand that in order to bring forward open government policies, it's not very easy always to persuade a policymaker that we need to do it, because sometimes it is very difficult when we go to the middle level of the government to make this happen, because there is a lot of resistance to that. So in order to make it happen, we need to build the culture in the public sector and to build this attitude of openness and of disclosure to make it happen. And for example, for open data, okay, we can decide that we should open all the data that we have in the public sector. But you understand there is a resistance to that. So we need first to build the culture, so people that are involved in this process will be able to cooperate and make it happen. And I've seen champions like that here, and everyone that shared with us practices from your government, they had this enthusiasm, and we think that this enthusiasm should go widely in your public sector, so we have more cases like that.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Liz, famous last words.
I don't know much about blockchain, but I know we have a blockchain strategy, but generally the practice that we adhere to for technology in GDS is that you start with the user need. You start with what you're trying to solve. You talk to people. You talk to the people who need to use the service, who have to operate the service, and then you pick the technology to match that need. And blockchain is very fancy and like all buzzy, but most of the time, like I can't really think of any examples that we use because most of the time you just need a database that's secure. So maybe it'll solve your problem, but you really, really should investigate like why you want to use that technology. If someone is particularly like pushing for it, like what's their incentive? And instead look at like how are people actually going to use this day to day? Like what if we have to change it? Like examine the question from all angles. And if some of them come back like this might not work, then you might want to investigate alternatives. So never think of the technology of solving the problem, just think about solving the problem, and then find the technology that will most help you do that. Not digitizing, I can't think of anything that shouldn't be digitized, but again, it's like a matter of like how is that data then secured? What are the appropriate controls on it? And especially the benefits of digitization, even with kind of personal data, is that you can help your users a lot more quickly. So if we can share our health data with our benefits office so they don't have to go into an assessment to see whether or not they're ill, that's great, right? It saves them a trip. It saves us from having to do repeat checks. It's very sensitive data, but as long as we have outlined to our user that they're sharing this data to make their lives easier, then that's great. But again, like, you have to be very, very careful with it. You have to have the appropriate controls on it. You have to have the appropriate access and make sure it's not like accessible on the internet. So, but there's like loads of internet protocols and all those sort of things already existing to help you make those decisions and make sure the data's secure. What was the last one? Blockchain. No, downsides of open data, open government. I don't think there is. I'm trying to think of one. I take your point about like procurement and especially like RIT for claiming expenses is still not great. You know, there's patches in GDS and wider government in the UK that are still not as useful or helpful or accessible to civil servants as we'd like. But again, I don't think the problem is necessarily the open government policy. It's how we've implemented the technology. And so if we do that again, can we talk to like the auditors before we allow, in our case, Uber to be claimed straight through or something like that? And so I don't think it's the open policy, it's the technology we've chosen to deliver it.
Well, thank you so much, the panelists. We're running out of time, but I would like to ask for your applause to the panelists who did a wonderful job in bringing the topic to the fore.
Well, thank you so much for all
I wanted
the
to remind you
speakers.
before we close that now we have 4 breakout sessions where you can actually go deeper into some of the discussions. A number of colleagues and also Liz and Nancy. The 4 sessions will be first, coordination mechanisms for open and digital strategy within governments. And I think it's Alessandro Bellantoni who will moderate this. The second one is digital government towards citizen-driven public services. Barbara Ubaldi will moderate that one. Third, open policy making, engaging stakeholders in co-creating policies using digital platforms for participation. And is my colleague Hila Hinsberg who will moderate that one. And last but not least, from access to information to open government data, who is my colleague Arturo Rivera, who will moderate that one. They will let you know where this is taking place, but they are, again, parallel sessions. You have to pick one, pick the one that interests you the most, and hope you have a very good discussion. Again, once more, thank you very much to all of you for your participation, to the panelists. It's been a very interesting discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the speakers.